Hello and welcome, everybody. We are not quite live in case you haven't figured it out. This is a pre-recorded video in place of our usual Sunday night live show. So I thought I'd do this. I'm away, as you know. I've been away for 4 days by the time this comes out, helping Lee with a few things and also at BBC Gardeners World Autumn Fair, where I have been doing my stage talk, and hopefully it has gone very well. So I thought what I'll do tonight, so obviously I don't want to leave my missing spot. 6 o'clock on the Sunday night has made our Sunday nights, a regular thing, and I didn't want to miss out on it. So what I thought I'd do is I'll pop along, I'll act like we're doing a live show and get you guys to comment as we go along. Obviously, I won't be able to respond to your comments, so this is going to be something a little bit tricky. But what I do want to say is that all your comments, I will watch this video later on and go through your comments so that you can let me know what challenge you want me to do for the next week and what seeds you want me to sow for the next week, as well as come up with an idea for a subject for next week as well. So get thinking of that in the comments. Now, what I wanted to talk about today is something that I thought it might be a good idea to discuss, is our winter project plans. Now, I always feel that the winter time is a great time to tackle some of our big infrastructure projects. Reason being is a lot of our plants are dead. We can see them a little bit better, or they're dying back. We can see them much easier. We've got less to do in the garden because there's not so much growing. I just feel it's the best time to do some of our infrastructure projects. And then come spring, we can hit the ground running, just doing what we need to do. So what's my idea of these infrastructure projects? Well, something that we could be doing is building greenhouses, building new beds, building paths, those are the sort of things that I am talking about. And what I thought I'd do, I'll go through my own plans and get you guys to share your plans in the comments as well. So my first sort of major project, and this is actually something that I can start doing right away, is to start building some new beds in the home plot. Now, this year I actually built a couple of new beds, but I did them a bit differently. One was a straw bale garden, and the other was just cardboard and compost on top of that. Now, the straw bale garden didn't really work, I don't think. It just didn't really work, didn't provide us with anything like I was hoping, just hasn't really worked. And in the bed with no wooden edges, if you like, that bed there worked really well, actually. We had tomatoes growing in it, but unfortunately they've all succumbed to blight, and I've cleared out those tomatoes, which has left those two beds effectively empty, which just means that I can start thinking about now, or start building these new beds. Now, I should explain that on my beds that I currently have in my allotment, on my garden, I have 4 beds. These measure 2.4 meters long and 1.5 meters wide. And I find them, to be honest, a little bit on the big. They're 30 centimeters deep, I should say. They are just a little bit on the big side. It becomes difficult to try and reach in effectively, try and do any weeding or planting or anything like that. And this is where, on the 2 new beds, I built them to that same size, thinking that it would look better that if everything was a uniform size. But I'm having second thoughts now. Now, I could stick and build just 2.4 by 1.5 meter wide beds, of course. Or one of the things that I've thought about is having 6 1 meter square beds. That's something I might do. Or another thing I thought of is having beds that go long. So they're still 2.4 meter width-wise effectively, but only making them 80 centimeters, maybe a meter deep and have 4 of those. I'm not sure what's going to look best. More I'm thinking about it, the more I think the 2.4 by 1 meter beds might actually work and have 4 of those. I know it's very difficult to try and explain. I was hoping to take some pictures to do a better picture for you guys, but unfortunately, I just ran out of time for these pictures. So I'd love to know, in the comments, what do you think is going to be best? The 2.4, or sticking with what I've got, 2.4 by 1.5, 6 1 meter square beds, or the 2.4 deep depth width, by 1 meter wide, and 4 of those. Let me know if it should be 2, 4, 6. That might make it easy. Let us know in the comments. Now, another project I'm hoping to do here at home is actually to do with my greenhouse and outside my greenhouse. So for me, the greenhouse at home isn't so much for growing plants, although we do have a few tomatoes and strawberries growing in there. It's more for starting seeds off and getting them to grow on. So for me, what I want to do inside the greenhouse is clear everything out and build a table in there, an L-shaped table that gives me somewhere to sow seeds, prick out seeds and pop them up, as well as have somewhere underneath where I can store things like compost, and it may be even the heater propagators down there as well. That's a fairly easy project to do, just involves cutting wood to size, measuring it all up, measure first, of course, cut it to size, build it, and work out the plans. Now, for me, this is going to be very much for seed sowing, seed propagation, as opposed to places to grow things. Obviously, as we get into the summer, it will be used for growing certain things, but I'm very much wanting it to be about a seed or young plant propagation. And then outside the greenhouse, we have like a concrete slabbed area, but towards the very back, we have several trees. Now, these trees, there's a hazel tree, a castor oil tree, and some other weird tree that I don't know what. Those 3 trees, we've decided they're going to come out. They're getting a bit too big and bulgy to try and control. The hazel tree is meant to be a twisted hazel tree, but it's got so old now and so out of control, it's forming a lot of straight branches. So we're going to take those out. Again, I can be starting this quite soon. But once those trees are out, what I then want to do is lay some decking above that concrete to give it a nice sort of decking area, somewhere we can walk on with wood, a bit more gentle and things. And then towards the back, where those trees that I've just spoken about, I want to build some sort of grow houses, I guess you could say. So sort of chest height with windows, wooden framed windows, somewhere I can continue to grow a lot of the young plants. And then maybe along the front have some sort of cold frames as well. This again is very much for the seed propagation area, but just trying to give myself more space. I noticed what happened this year is I had lots of seeds growing in places, but I was running out of space and it became a bit difficult, especially when it was still a little bit temperamental. We wanted the weather to be just a little bit better before they could go out. So I'm thinking that we could do is build a nice area just outside that greenhouse, which tallies up with everything that I'm saying, that we can have these young plants and try and make it look nice. A lot of what I'm going to be trying to do next year, especially here at home, is making everything look nice. Now, I say that I consider myself as what I call an engineering garden. That means to say that everything is there because it works. It's not so much about it looking fancy. I think next year, I feel like I'm going to be making a bit more of an effort to try and make things look good. Now, I do get a bit embarrassed with a garden at times because it just doesn't quite hit the mark. And I'm sure probably everybody goes through that, I'm sure. we all judge ourselves based on what we see of everyone else's. But for me, I just want it to look a bit better and make me feel a lot more proud about it. So apart from that, here at home, those are the main projects that I'm planning to do over winter. It doesn't sound that much, but I've only really got weekends available to me, so I don't have a huge amount of time like I would like. But the time that I do have is very, very valuable. So apart from that, there's a lot of tidying up that's going to be going on and moving a water bath, but we're going to be doing that pretty much soon as well. Taking out a few more trees. As I say, everything in my garden is to be edible, or if it's not edible, it helps our edible crops in some form or another. So let me know, what do you think of that? And do you have any winter project plans in the comments down below? Now, last week, I think it was Stuart Jackson, hopefully I've understood this correctly. He set me the challenge of making up some soil mixes. So I've made up my seed mix, and that was this week's challenge. Don't forget, think about next week's while you're watching this. Let's go see what I've done. Right, this week we had a challenge to make my own seed potting mix, and this is what I tend to do. So in here I have got perlite, and I've used 1 scoop. That's a scoop I use. 1 scoop of perlite. Now I'm going to add 4 scoops of seed compost. So 1, 2, 3, 4. As easy as that. That's how I mix my seed sowing compost with added perlite. I find that a good ratio, and then we just give it a good mix around, like so. There we go. A good lot of compost. I'll get my hands in there just to finish it off. Good lot of seed sowing compost ready to sow seeds. So that's how I make my own seed sowing compost. Obviously it is bought in terms of compost, but that's what I do. Let me know what you think on that, and if you make your own. Right, that was this week's challenge. If you want to put in the comments down below a challenge for next week that I can tackle, I'll see you back in the studio. Unfortunately, using StreamYard, and I'm back, so hopefully it's working now. I'm not sure if I started talking too early or anything there. I'm using my normal stuff that I use, but because I'm indoors, hence the pub, our internet isn't as great as I can get outside, so I'm not quite sure what we had there or if that actually worked. I'm hoping it did, but there we go. This week's challenge was to make our own seed mix, seed compost. So hopefully I understood that challenge right. If I didn't, let me know. And as I said, set me a challenge for next week, a project that I can video or anything like that. Could be absolutely anything. I've got a bit more time over this next weekend, so I should be able to tackle something a little bit bigger. Right, so moving on from that, my phone going off. Moving on from the home plot and my winter projects, let's move down to the allotment, which is my other growing area. So what are my winter plans for the allotment? On the whole, I'm pretty happy with everything on the allotment. It's come together really nicely. Everything is pretty much working out. There are areas that do need improvement, especially around the edges, of course. And that's probably going to be where I'm focusing a lot over the winter. Now, the two greenhouses, I expect over the winter, the strong winds that we're bound to get at some point are going to cause some damage with the glass. So one of them it is fully glazed at the moment, and the other one needs a lot more glass. So we really need to focus on getting that glass. We're going to wait now till probably March when it's probably going to be safe to do that. The trouble with glass is it is so expensive. And as much as I need it, I just cannot justify spending that much money on the allotment. So that is a winter project. I'm still going to be keeping an eye on Facebook Marketplace to try and find some glass. It's where I try and find a lot of glass anyway. And hopefully we can get those two greenhouses glazed out over the winter, or more into the spring, as you could say. Now, one of the biggest projects that I have down on the allotment that I want to do is to move my little shed that I have down at the very bottom of the allotment. Its location, when I put it there, I wanted it away from the road, thinking that it'll be better for everyone else. What I've realized is it's not good for me, so I'm going to move it back. It's going to be a bit closer to the road, a bit closer to the corner of the allotment. People just have to slow down if they drive around that bit. So that's the plan. Move that back, and then that's going to free up a large area. And in that area, what I want to do is dig out my fruit trees and move those to give them a bit more space. So this is in the corner, we've got the hazel tree. The hazel tree will probably stay where it is. We've got an apple tree, which is a type of apple specifically for making cider. And then we've got a cherry tree in between the two. Each of these are in 1 meter square spacing, and they're too tight. So I want to dig those the apple and the cherry tree out, move them over where they can get a bit more space and hopefully just produce better results next year. Now, the cherry tree actually does very, very well. We get quite a few cherries out of it, and it pops out a lot of young cherry as well, because the cherry seeds, when the birds come along, they peck on it and they drop the seeds, and they end up growing into some new trees. So I'm thinking that one of my winter projects is to get those two trees, the shed and the two trees moved, and then perhaps set up the area at the very bottom, weed suppressing membrane perhaps or something, just to make it a little bit easier for me. I mean, I don't like weed suppressing membrane, but it might just help reduce that area down because it is quite weedy. Now, talking of weedy, I've always said my allotment is a very, very weedy plot, and it is. It really, really is. So a lot of over the winter is going to be about trying to remove as much of the weeds as possible, butch grass, mulches, all those sort of things. And then we potentially could do with building some more compost bins. Now, with the shed moved, I think we might have to put some compost bins in various areas around the shed. And that should hopefully make it a little bit better for us. But compost for me, and we've spoken about this, compost for me is something that we need to make a lot of. And it's always a challenge to make enough compost. And now this year I did build that rather large compost bin, which is working out quite nicely. It's filled up. It's all starting to rot down, and hopefully it's going to produce some fantastic compost that we can use into winter, maybe even into the spring when I dig it all out and clear it all through. But I think, what we need to do is get hold of some manure. We spoke about this last week. I'm hoping to get hold of some cow manure because I think that's going to be a good option. And that hopefully then will just free up all those spaces and be able to produce a lot more compost, which will then help with our no-dig gardening and suppressing those weeds, because hopefully we've actually got enough then that we can use it as a mulch right throughout the year. The biggest trouble, of course, with compost is getting enough material. And again, this is where I'm always struggling. I get plenty of weeds, plenty of lawn cuttings, plenty of foliage, plenty of wood chip. You know, it just, no matter what we do, we just cannot seem to produce quite enough compost. And decent compost as well. You know, we can actually produce really, really good compost just through throwing it all into our containers. Even better if we chop it up small. I'm quite happy with the compost we produce. It's nice and sweet smelling, which is always a good sign of compost. But just being able to produce enough is really what we want. And now I've got to say, this is really different trying to record this like a live without being able to see any comments. Hopefully you are all commenting and telling me everything that you think I should be doing. But don't forget, one of the things that we do with this live show, it's not about necessarily about me or, you know, telling me what to do as such. It's more about sharing ideas, sharing tips and sharing tricks. And this is something that I think we are very good at doing. And I thought, you know, it's the way forward. It's about a community of gardeners, and that's what we do. And now, to fill out the time a little, because I'm not going to be able to do an hour like I hoped. I'm going to probably make it to half an hour. So you guys do get a bit of a shorter finish, but of course you can watch it at a later date as well. But the comments are obviously the main thing. So you want to see the comments at the same time. But one thing that I read the other day, and I love your thoughts. This was a letter that had been sent in to a newspaper. And it was from the Dorset Echo, if I remember correctly. And the letter basically was somebody complaining about their neighbour cutting the lawn on a weekend. Now, my first thought was, well, I cut the lawn at the weekends, and I never really thought it would be a problem for anybody. So, and it's the only chance I get to cut the lawn. However, the writer of the letter was a bit upset because they were trying to enjoy the garden, which I kind of understand. However, the person who was cutting the lawn was retired and always cut the lawn on the weekend. Could have cut it during the week. Now, I'm bringing this up because I want to hear or see your thoughts on this very subject. For me, it was a very difficult situation, I thought. Personally, I never really thought it would be a problem cutting the lawn at the weekend. As I said, I work during the week, so I only really get the chance to cut the lawn on a weekend anyway. Unless you want me doing it at 8 o'clock at night, which I don't think is fair. But then if you are retired, and there are people also around you who are also retired, and maybe just wanting to enjoy the garden at the weekend, is it right to inflict the nuisance of the sound of a lawnmower when they are enjoying the weekend? I don't know. I'm very conflicted with this one. So get commenting on what you think on this. Very conflicted, to say the least. Now, one more thing before we go. You sent me the the sow along this week was to sow onion seeds. And these are going to be overwintering onions. So let's go have a look and see how they go.
Right, guys, this week we are sowing in this sow along onion seeds, and these are going to be overwintering. So quite a popular thing to do. I usually like to grow my overwintered onions from sets, if I'm honest with you, because I have more luck. But you guys, you want to see how we can do this, so we're going to give it a try. Here is my pot with seed sowing compost. You saw me how I make my seed sowing compost up earlier, and this is that full. These are the seeds that we have. It's a variety called Elisa Craig, which is a white onion, very popular, and can be sown around this time of year apparently. So we'll open up the packet. Before I sow the seeds, I'm going to stick in the label that I do have just in there. Now this compost is pretty moist. I've moistened it before we sow. Now, I have to admit, as I said earlier, I prefer growing my onions from sets. I just find I have a lot more luck. But that doesn't mean we can't do it. These are the onions. They're pretty small things. So we're just going to try and scatter those on all over the place and get them going. And then we're going to cover these over with some more seed compost, give them a good watering and leave them to germinate. Now, once these are germinated and growing strong, we will prick them out into individual root trainers and get them to grow on before we plant them out. These will be planted out in a garden or allotment, and they will grow absolutely fine throughout the winter. They're pretty hardy, and I always think they do us the world of good. So that's all the seed sown. I'm just going to tamp it down. These we can expect to harvest sort of around July, August, September next year, once they are full size and start to die back. Now, somewhere around here I've got my sieve, which here it is. There we go. I'm just going to sieve that over and see what happens. In terms of feed, a bit of blood, fish and bone does these onion seeds the world of good and helps grow them quite nicely. There are probably many other features of feeds that you can use to grow some of the best onions. Let us know in the comments quite what you do. There we go, so that's got those sown. I'm just going to tamp them down once more and allow them to grow and germinate. Right, choose a seed to sow for next week and back to the studio.
I wish I had really good internet. I think I've just kicked in. It's hard. Everything's just kicked back. So hopefully it's all working. I wish we had really good internet here. I really do. Oh, well, just decent internet. We've got broadband, super fast broadband, supposedly, but it really isn't. It's copper to the fibre to the box and then copper to the house, so not full fibre. And it really does make, when we're uploading or unloading or anything like that, it really, uploading specifically, let me get my words out, it really is slow. So trying to do these live streams on our internet is bad. That's why I usually out in the shed with our 3 little internet box, which I plugged in as well. Because we're indoors, it's not as good either. Anyway, right, that was the onions sown. I know I'm rabbiting on a little bit, but I'm treating this like a normal live show, just without that. But that is our onions sown. If you are sowing your onions as well, let us know. And let us know also if you have any tips or tricks on how you get away or how you grow your onions, especially over winter. I usually try and grow my overwintering onions from sets, I'll be honest. Now, sets are more likely to bolt, I believe, and supposedly not as good. But I always find they do better from sets than from seed, in my personal experience. I think the biggest trouble I have with seeds is the extra work involved in picking them out and putting them up. And this is where I come back to what I was saying earlier about the changes I'm making at home with the greenhouse and the outdoor growing station. It's just so it can give me the chance to actually be able to work efficiently. And that's what a lot of these winter projects are going to be about, making our garden more efficient, which does dial back to my engineering background, and make our garden a lot more efficient, but at the same time making it productive and look good. Ultimately, that's the plan. And obviously, as you know, I've always dreamt of owning a plant nursery. So we're trying to gear up and get into that frame of mind. So if we ever do buy a plant nursery, we can work out the way to make it efficient. More efficiency should, in theory, mean we make it worth or earn more money. That's a long way off. That may never happen, in all honesty. At the moment, we're just gardening in our own house, like many of us. Right, guys, this is, well, I've been going for half an hour, so I think I'm going to call this a night. Apologies, as I said, I'm away. I know this is not our normal live show. It's been very difficult trying to do this without having you guys to bounce off, but I think we've done our best. We will be back again next Sunday at 6 p.m., our usual time, where our usual service will come back. The first time in 3 years I've been away on a Sunday, so I do apologise, but I think we'll look at improving this in the future. Right, guys, you take care, and I'll see you all again next time. I've just realised I haven't set myself up. Bear with.